So here we are on the back deck of the Polaris. This is going to be the working platform for sampling. And Tamlin, the gear, how do we get a sample of plankton?
So probably our most important piece of gear is our Plankton Net. And this is what's going through the water. This is what we're towing from the boat, and that's collecting our sample and collecting all our little plankton that we want to look at. So you can see here we've got, this is our mesh.
Yep.
And this netting, you can get it in lots of different sizes depending on what kind of plankton you want to sample. And so nets are really, they're such a specialist equipment, and they're really expensive because they're made specifically for this type of sampling. And this mesh, even though you can't see it with your eye, has tiny, tiny little holes. And the area of all these holes is equal to the area of your opening, so that the water that's coming in through this opening we know will be moved through the net efficiently.
Okay, and you've got another one down here.
Yes, this is one packed up in its bag. So we'll just have a little look at this. So you can see, even having a look at these two meshes, that this one's a lot more see-through compared to our larger net, and so it's got a larger mesh size. So we've got the opening of the net here.
Yep.
We've got the bridle, so this is what is connected to the boat, or to a rope that's connected to the boat, so that our plankton net can be retrieved, doesn't head off into the abyss. And this here, our mesh, and then we've got an opening here. And
so it's that special shape, sort of like a funnel, so it funnels,
is. So you can
funnels
see
the
it's
sample.
really wide at the opening, and then it funnels down to the smaller size, and what connects to that is our cod piece.
Right.
So
and same mesh, and then this is
same mesh there.
Yeah.
And so this is where the plankton will be collected in.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And we just attach that on the end there.
Right.
This next set of gear is what we're going to be using once we've taken our sample with our plankton net. So we've got buckets, we have our concentrating jar, which we'll learn more about when we're doing our actual sampling.
Oh, so that mesh is the same size as the plankton net?
Yep, so this mesh is the same size as the plankton net.
So
that
I guess I can see how that works. You're going to keep the plankton, but get rid of some of the water.
Yeah, we don't want to be keeping this whole massive sample.
True.
We put it in here, and we've got the same mesh, so we want to make sure that we're keeping the plankton inside but getting the water out. Another sampling jar, we've got labels because we want to make sure that we are labeling our samples really well. Isopropanol for preserving the samples, pencils, safety glasses, gloves because we're going to be working with chemicals, and our funnel just to help with pouring.
All right, full set.
Yeah, this is our full set.
Oh, thank you. So that gives us a sample, but how do we get a quantitative measure of just how much of a particular plankton is there and at a certain time and place?
Our next most important bit of equipment is our flow meter.
Okay.
So you can see this plankton net here has been set up with flow meters. As the net's going through the water propels the flow meter, and you can see that the number, I don't know if you can you see that, is ticking over. So one number equals one rotation.
Oh, okay.
And so what we want to do with this number at the end of our plankton tow is we can use that to find out the distance that we have travelled with our plankton.
So why the two? Why one inside and one outside the net?
So the one inside and the one outside is so that we can tell how efficient our net is. So when our net is going through the water, it might start to get clogged up with plankton, maybe there's a bit of seaweed gets in there, and it stops the water flow properly going through the plankton net. And so we can compare our inner flow meter, which is inside the net, to the flow meter on the outside. The flow meter on the outside, the water that's going past isn't going through the nets. That's giving us an indication of what the flow is like outside of the net. When you compare the two, if you had a lower number inside the net at the end of your tow, that might tell you, okay, something is blocking the net's not as efficient.
Right, but sort of an efficiency of like 90%, 80%, 75%, that'd be okay. But if you had 45%, you might reject the
Exactly.
sample or
Yep.
repeat the tow, or
Yeah, because we're
Yeah.
expecting that it's going to be less efficient than the flow outside the net anyway, because
Yeah.
you're putting a net through the water. It's going to
Right.
get a bit of plankton
Okay.
clogging. But yeah, if it was 45%, we
Yeah.
would have to look at our data and maybe
Okay.
reject that.
So we can. So this allows us to get a measure of the volume that we sample, and then if we, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Counting those plankton samples, those little tiny things. But then we can get
Yeah.
a number per cubic
Yeah.
meter. Is that?
Yeah,
is that-
so the flow meters, we can figure out the volume of water that's gone through our net,
Yeah.
and then, figure out the size of our sample.
All right. And what's this pole and thing here for?
So this is going to be for our calibration of the flow meter. So we want to know how many rotations happen with the flow meter on over a certain distance, so that we can then accurately make our calculations.
Oh, so we end up with like number of rotations per meter.
Yeah,
So we can turn our rotations into meters travelled.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So we'll head off and do that now.
Okay. So, I see. We've got the pole and we've got the flow meter,
Yep, attached
There.
on the end.
and so we just take a reading of that. And what have we got? What's that? 575,029. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. All
And then
right.
we've got our tape measure
Tape
laid
measure.
out along the wharf.
Okay, and we're going to do what we've got 8 meters to go. So let's see how many Let's see how many rotations in 8 meters.
Okay.
And we have what's that? 575,291.
One.
Okay. So we don't just take one, do we? We just do it 3 times to get an average. Next measure is, and that's how the little flow meter works.
5,
When it's on the net,
7,
and
5, 5,
it gives us a measure of
Three.
distance travelled.
Yep.
Okay, cool, fine. And our
Third
one gives us 575824.
Yep.
Yep. And we're set.
Time to do
Should
our
we-
calculations.
Okay.
So if we think about where we've been sampling, so we've been off the Polaris here,
I get it. Boat on water.
boat on water.
Yep.
Then we have
Tow
a
line.
line
Yep.
coming down which is attached to our plankton net. So here's the opening of our net,
Yep.
and then our net is sitting in the water like this.
Okay, just below the surface.
Just below the surface. So the nets that we're using are going to be surface nets.
Yep.
So that means we're sampling in the first 1 to 2 meters of the water column.
Yeah.
We've got our cod piece, which we had a look at before. So that's
Yep.
collecting all our plankton.
Mhm.
And then what we want to be finding out is, this is our sample of the water column that has been going through the plankton.
All right,
net.
so that's the distance the net's travelled through the water.
Exactly. So what we're finding out is the volume of a cylinder.
Okay.
So to figure that out, we need to have the area times the distance that the net has travelled.
Right.
And so to figure out the distance, we can do this using our flow meters. So we figure it out by dividing the number of rotations of the flow meter from our sample by the rotations per meter.
Yeah, I guess this is the rotations of the inside flow meter because it's the...
Yes, so it is the inside flow meter that we're using. So remember, our outside flow meter is just to check the efficiency of our net. We don't actually use the numbers from that for our calculation. So this one is our calibration number, and then this one is from our plankton sample. when we actually do the sample there.
So how did our calibration turn out?
So we've got our numbers. So let's go through how to figure out our calibration. So here we have figured out the difference in number of rotations between the start number and our first rotation, our first rotation and our first calibration, our second calibration, and then our second calibration and our third calibration. So these are our 3 samples. And then we add those together and divide it by 3 to get our average.
Yep.
And this is an average number of rotations per 8 meters. So that distance that we put our tape measure down when we did the calibration was 8 meters. So then we want to divide this number by 8 to figure out the number of rotations per meter, which is this number we use here. So we get 33 rotations per meter. So in the end, our area will be in meters squared times the distance in meters.
Yep.
And this will equal, or this will enable us to get the count of plankton per meters cubed. So this gives us our...
So this is kind of a tool in a way that helps us ask some really pretty precise questions and pose some pretty clear hypotheses about plankton out there on the coastal environment.
Yep, exactly.
Wow, that's going to be exciting.
It is going to be exciting.
So the next step is to plan our little sampling expedition.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you soon for that planning session.
Great.